let's review season 4, episode 7 of The Boys. It just dropped. Now, a big part of this episode is that Frenchie is back. We haven't seen him in a few episodes. Really, this whole season, he's basically been gone as they try to shoehorn at the start of this season this weird romance with him and this guy because he killed the guy's parents. Really just out of place. Don't give us Frenchie and Kamiko. Like, they shouldn't have any love interests besides each other. Or, like, obviously Frenchie had a different love interest, that woman from earlier seasons. Like, he could end up with her in the end, but really, you wouldn't even want to do that. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Just have him either have him end up with Kamiko or just don't even tell us what happens with their love lives. Because obviously people ship them and they left things on shaky terms as they kissed and they weren't sure. They decided not to date, but they're also like super busy with trying to take out Homelander and Newman and all these people. Like, they don't got time to date. So really out of place with this Colin stuff. Really out of nowhere. Really disgusting that Frenchie killed the guy's parents and then starts a relationship with them and then tells them. You could have. It's just bad writing. You could have literally had. If for some reason you wanted to shoehorn in this Frenchie hooking up with this guy, you could have done it all in like 10 minutes of screen time. But yeah, they wasted a bunch of screen time on Frenchie earlier in this season. But Frenchie's back. He's back to normal. He decides, him and Kamiko basically decide to spare the life of like Newman's boyfriend or whatever, who's cooking up this virus for soups. Um, but that's kind of a big thing. I feel like that's one of the most important plots of this episode is Frenchie and Kamiko and the doctor or whatever cooking up this virus. Because it puts Kamiko and Frenchie in danger. And the thing is, finally, we get an episode where most of the main characters are in actual danger, where they could just like die. And that's awesome. That's part of what makes Homelander such a great villain is the fact that he is willing to just kill anybody at any time. So it gives him so much presence in the scenes that he's in. But earlier in the season, it was way too often where you kind of knew that none of the characters were in any real major danger, but it felt like the characters were in danger this episode, and it seemed like we were going to get a character death, which is good. You want the audience to feel that way, right? Because think about it. Sage was in danger, A Train, Deep, Noir, Starlight, Huey, Frenchie, Kamiko, Butcher, MM. Like, all of these major characters could have died this episode. And it would have, like, fit for some of them. It would have been pretty harsh if MM got taken out this episode, but, like, it would have had impact for sure. But the show's at its best when people aren't surrounded by plot armor, which you sometimes can't help but feel as these human characters continually go after like Homelander and Newman, who could just easily destroy them, could just murder them all. Um, it's kind of like, all right, and these are like incredibly murderous and treacherous characters. So it's like they're killing people all the time. Well, like they can just kill the boys, or like at least one of them, at least like knock them down a peg. And obviously, Deep and Noir went there to kind of do that. But I mean, on some level, Homelander's got to realize, like, all right, I'm not sending my real firepower here. like, Starlight is probably at the same level of the new Noir or the Deep. Like, I'm sure in a genuine 2 versus 1, they could take out Starlight, but I mean, he like Homelander knows that it ain't gonna be a one-on-one with Starlight. He knows that they got Kamiko and that the other guys have been fighting soups like for a large chunk of their adult lives. So Yeah, just a really cool episode. Better than episode 4, which was when Homelander was just taking out all the people in the lab that he grew up in. That was awesome. Um, yeah, it's nice to see the show kind of get back on track, and us to see the subplot with Butcher and Ryan feels like it's very been very stretched out, and it kind of needs to be like it kind of makes sense, but at certain times it just doesn't feel that, like, Ryan feels like an overly whiny little boy, which on one hand is very fair, right? Like, he basically, his dad is an absolute lunatic and he knows it, and his mom is deceased. So it's like it's fair, but it's we get a lot of Ryan being whiny throughout the show, but finally in this episode he really stands up for himself, and it's nice to see that subplot finally kind of like pay off, or start to pay off a little bit. Um, yeah, it's just overall, it's nice to see the show get back on track. It's nice to have Frenchie be back, and also like be himself. Like I said, I feel like that could have been entirely done in 10 minutes. Like, start of the season, Frenchie rolls out of bed with this guy. He goes and talks to Kamiko about it. Like, he immediately meets up with Kamiko, talks to her about it, and say like her and like Starlight and Huey are there, or whatever. And like Starlight and Huey would be logically, upon hearing this, would be like outraged, and you want another character there because Kamiko doesn't talk, so they could like verbalize for Kamiko. Because I'm sorry, but like don't get me wrong, I love Kamiko, and they do a ton with her character, and she does a great job, but for certain things, certain situation, it requires a very big reaction, and that would kind of allow that to be like, hey, dude, this is like extremely vile and disgusting and out of character for Frenchie. So if you wanted to do it, if you, for some reason you wanted to do this weird Colin subplot, have it be like super quick, where Frenchie is immediately called out and realizes how truly disgusting it is, and how he will destroy this man's life entirely. This man will never trust anyone again. This is like evil that approaches like Homelander levels of evil. And then Frenchie just never talks to the guy again, and maybe he feels bad, and I don't know, like leaves the guy money or something, where he's like, yeah, this doesn't make up for it, but I'm ghosting this guy, leaving him money. We hooked up once, whatever, one night stand. Something like that. Not like him being in this like deep relationship with the guy, and then he tells the guy that he killed his parents. Just so evil and demented for no reason. And then it's just dropped, and this episode cements that Colin isn't going to be in the show for the rest of the time, which I could kind of tell after the point where Frenchie tells him that he killed his parents. I'm like, all right, we're never going to see this character again, thus making this entire subplot pointless. It's not really something Frenchie would do anyways. It's just bad writing. It should have been removed entirely. They shouldn't have even done any kind of subplot like that. But yeah, it is what it is. Characters are mostly back to normal. We actually get like some Huey and Starlight stuff, which has been horribly lacking this season. We get MM and his ex-wife, which was awesome. I feel like MM also kind of is back in a way. Like I found it very weird that at the start of the season, he's now the leader of the group. Pretty much the first scene we get in the season is the boys miserably failing at a mission to take out Newman. Like they do so bad. Like they don't have like backup plans. Like things go really, really bad. So it's like, all right, MM is now the leader of the group, and they're doing worse than they ever have. You're kind of like sacrificing this character. What would make sense is what happened finally in episode 7, which is him stepping down and saying like, hey, I don't like this. Like, Butcher is a better leader than I am. Like, he's got the ruthlessness and like the management skills. Like, he's got what it takes to be a leader, and I don't, because it's fine. Like, most people wouldn't. different people have different strengths. Some people have that like management mindset that like they prefer to like balance things, whereas other people are better like at specializing in things and focusing on what they want to focus on, which is what does. Just kind of also a weirdly prolonged subplot, but it's nice that it finally also kind of like pays off a little bit and starts the characters start being like back to normal. I'm fine with characters changing and being different and us discovering new things about them, but it just sometimes it just doesn't fit the show and with the pacing of the show. Like with the Deep, for example, in this episode, he got quite a bit of screen time and it worked. And like he changed his mindset drastically changes throughout this episode and it works. It makes sense. It fits his character. Um, even even Sage, like I found that it's like we're kind of deep. We're 7 episodes in and we still have no clue what Sage's motivation is. I hope that she's not just entirely out of the series at this point. It's kind of weird that we don't know what her plan was for Homelander because I feel like it would have made sense for her because her plan's really not all that smart, and it's kind of also bad writing. I feel like to have her openly say that she's like the smartest person on the planet, and she insists on reiterating it, but then once she has like ultimate power by having Homelander do what she wants, it just isn't that smart of a plan at all. Like it's something it like it's I get that it's trying to represent stuff that like clearly people in actual power in the real world do, like governments and stuff, and how they separate people and divide people on the dumbest for the dumbest of reasons, right? Which ironically a lot of fans of this show just don't even understand that they're being divided. Like not only in the real world are they being divided by these powers that they don't even begin to understand, but also that the show is also dividing them themselves. It just flies over so many people's heads. But anyway, I felt like Sage was definitely must have been having such a shallow plan, must be leading Homelander down to a path to his ultimate destruction, right? So now that he's rejected her, now like what's her plan going forward? What's Homelander's plan going forward? Maybe this was Sage knew this was going to happen, right? Interesting. Who knows? I don't they just haven't explained anything to us, and I feel like it's a little deep into the season to not know the motivation whatsoever of the main villain. I feel like Sage, realistically, I hope to God they don't make her a good guy. I'm fine with her wanting to destroy Homelander in the Seven and cause chaos and destruction. That's fine, but she needs to be the villain. The chaos and destruction she wants to sow needs to be on an enormous scale. She needs to be the main villain of this season. Um, because like clearly it's not Homelander or Newman. Obviously, like Homelander's the main villain of the series, so it makes sense for him to really kind of come into his own in the final season, which will be next season. Sage would make a great big boss for this season. I hope that's what's happening. Or if they even want to make her like end the season on her villainy really reigning supreme, and then they have to deal with her and Homelander and Newman in the next season. But really, I feel like there's enough major villains right now that it would be nice for somebody to be taken out by the end of the season. I hope it's not Firecracker, because Firecracker is just like, she's just this like useless sidekick to Homelander in a lot of ways. Like she got murked, she got stomped by Starlight. Um, she like just way too weak of a villain to you know, it's almost like It's almost as though it's not even worth the time of the boys to take her out. But yeah, I like this episode. I feel like the season's finally back on track, and yeah, I feel like unfortunately I'm more excited for season 5 than I am for the conclusion of season 4. But I hope that my hope is that Sage's plan really starts to take form and come to pass in these remaining episodes. I'm not sure how many episodes are left in the season. And then she, like her villain, she becomes a much stronger villain in these last episodes of the season, and they have to like take her out. Um, yeah, because I'm sorry about this soup virus plot line. It just doesn't really ultimately work for me because they have the virus now, and like the guy said, it's not strong enough to take out Homelander, so it probably is strong enough to take out Newman. But I just don't. Maybe they'll need to use it on Sage. We don't really understand how strong Sage is physically. Like, we know that her brain is super strong, but is it indestructible? Like, if Homelander started slicing it with his laser eyes, like, is it some weird? Is it like a Majin Buu thing where just a tiny bit of it and she'll recover? Is she like as strong as Kamiko? Maybe they'll have to use the virus on Sage, maybe Newman. But I mean, it wouldn't even make sense that it would be what it wouldn't make sense to take out Homelander this season. Um, so it's kind of like underwhelming, right? Like when you have this plot device that the entire like purpose of it is to take out Homelander, and we know it won't take out Homelander this season. Kind of makes it a little underwhelming. And maybe in the last season they'll develop it further to take out Homelander, but even that feels very very dumb. I I can't help but be a little confused by a lot of stuff in this show because say Homelander for example, say with like Soldier Boy or Newman, somebody who Homelander wants to eliminate. Like we just saw in this episode, he ripped somebody in half. He ripped a soup in half. He grabbed Spider-Man and ripped him in half. I've This has always crossed my mind ever since early seasons of this show. Well, really ever since like I guess might have just been last season with Soldier Boy. Um, if Homelander wants to take somebody out, why does he just grab them, fly them as high up as he feels comfortable going, and just throw them into outer space? They're done. They're done if he does that, right? Like he could throw them so far out that like they're just done. They're cooked. They're literally gonna just like I don't know. Why wouldn't he do that? And there's also like I don't know. Maybe that's how they'll take out Homelander. But Homelander can fly. But can he fly in space? Can he survive in space? I don't know. Like, what really takes him out? Does he need to breathe air? If he doesn't need to breathe air, then just launch him into space. Um, like, if they can find a way to like knock him out, launch the launch the dude into space. I don't know. Um, there's got to be somebody with the powers to launch Homelander into space, which might take him out, right? Like, yeah, he's like Superman, but he's not Superman, as far as we know. So I don't know. I just found it weird because it's like, yeah, just throw people into space and they're done. Doesn't matter if they're soup or they're not, unless they can teleport. Like if you throw a V'd out Huey into space, he can tell he has some time to teleport back. Like it would have to be right when he gets launched, and um, but outside of that, you're really not surviving it.